Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My name is Richa. I'm part of the admissions team here at ISB. And joining me today is a very power-packed panel of ISB women alums. The agenda of the session is Empowered Women Empowering Other Women Leaders. So thank you once again, ladies, for joining us. And we'll get started. I'd like to introduce the panel members. We have Meghna from class of 206. She's currently Director Consulting at Ernst & Young. We have Dr. Vedavali. She's from class of 2011. She's Director Strategy at Providence, India. And finally, we have joining Gayatri Chauhan from class of 2015. She's a founder and CEO of Buzz and Earth. So with that, I'd like to quickly invite the panel members. And why don't you give us a short introduction before we get started with the questions? We've got over 500 registration for today's session. We've solicited some questions and we have sort of put together the most frequently asked questions. And we'll ask them one by one. But before that, quickly introducing yourself. How did you, just a little bit on your ISB journey, how did you go about selecting the ISB program for your career transition, the during ISB experience, and after graduation, your transformation journey? So starting with you, Meghna, over to you.
Oh, okay. I was really hoping we'd go alphabetically. So, yeah.
Seniors first.
Oh my God, did you have to say that? So, yeah, so how I chose ISB, honestly, in hindsight, I can make it sound like a very deliberate, conscious, well-researched decision, but it was basically, I was an IT professional and my parents said, MBA karna padega. That's it, you know, and I researched a lot of colleges and I got into a number of other colleges and I got offers from a couple of colleges abroad also. But the more, and those were ISB's early days, you know, I'm from the batch of 2005-06. And we heard a lot of good things about ISB, but the more I heard about it, the more I felt that, okay, this is the kind of place that I want to be in. And that's it. I just joined ISB. I applied for it and I got in, and the interview process, the entire process, even the candidate experience I found was so different from the usual, I wouldn't say run of the mill, but the usual processes, group discussion, interview, etc., that other colleges employ. And I felt that that entire process kind of treated me with a lot more respect as a professional, because I was already coming in with like 4.5, 5 years of experience when I joined ISB. And that's something that I thought, wow, this is the place that I want to be. So that's how I joined ISB. I chose it over other schools. During ISB, that's a traumatic experience. I'm sure Gayatri and Veda will agree. After the first week, work fell on us like a ton of bricks.
Wow.
I don't think I've been through a more stressful time. Even it's been 16 years since I got out of ISB, and I'm a director in consulting in Ernst & Young now, and I still don't think I've been through a more stressful time than the time I went through in ISB. But it left us transformed, and I'm sure we can talk about that later. And post ISB. So I worked with Ernst & Young. I joined the government consulting practice, and then I moved to EY Europe to work with international development agencies. And then I moved to EY US for a few years. I was in Washington, DC. I was the global account manager for World Bank Group. Then I came back to India and I set up Ernst & Young's innovation lab called EY Wavespace, which is a design thinking based experience center and innovation lab. And yeah, and now I'm part of the social sector practice where I work. My clients are state and central government ministries, departments, where we kind of help them think about the schemes that they want to roll out across the country and implement them. And I don't want to take too much time from Gayatri and Veda, so I'll pause here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Meghna. Moving on to Dr. Veda.
Sure. So my story is somewhat similar to Meghna, but slightly different. So of course, fast forward another 6 years, right? So 2006 to 2011, ISB was a little more established and better known, right? So my job was a little bit easier to make that decision. But where I came from was very different. So I actually trained to be a physician at Jupmer in Pondicherry, right? And all I had thought of was I will become a doctor. My mother is a practitioner, and there was no plan B ever, right? So I thought that I was born to be a doctor and nothing else. Towards the end of my internship is when, different thoughts coming into my mind, and I thought, this is all I know. What else is there in the world to go understand, right? So that's how I said, let me experiment a little bit. 23 is not a bad age to go experiment a little bit. And if it doesn't work out, I can always come back and, go do my post-graduation in medicine or whatever, given I had a degree anyway. So at that time, I started researching, and my father had told me that at some point in life, you have to get an MBA, irrespective of what profession you're in, because it's just basic life skills that you need, right? And so then I figured, since I'm anyway trying to explore other things, let me shoot for an MBA. And I picked up a role at a company called RxMD, which is a very non-traditional role for a physician. It's about drug development and safety consulting, which is a profession that was unknown at that time, right? But it was very exciting medical analytical work, which I thoroughly enjoyed, just being right out of med school. And that was sort of my prep to go into a business school and then walk into the corporate world, right? And I was doing my research. Of course, I applied for ISB and some other business schools in the US, even INSEAD and things like that. And it so happened that the ISB interview was the first in that season. Initially, I thought, let me go do the interview and then we'll see what happens, right? I got through, and then I realized that this is such a good school. It looks like such a good school. I set foot in Hyderabad and I thought, okay, this is a city I want to live in. And this is the school I want to study, right? So that's when I dropped all of the other applications. So I didn't even complete the other applications. So kind of fell in love with ISB right at the beginning. Time at ISB was fantastic. It was a very different world for me because, of course, I came from medicine, right? I did not use laptops at that time, believe me or not. Excel spreadsheets, which is what life has become nowadays. I would just know how to use the filter function and nothing more, right? So it was a completely different world that I came from. But ISB, the 1 year there was fantastic, both from a learning perspective as well as in terms of the kind of friends that I made. Very, very different backgrounds. You learn to adjust and adapt and work with different kinds of people. I think that was my greatest takeaway from ISB. And we had a lot of fun, right? Yes, there is a lot of workload, no question about that. There is at least 5 things that are going on at any point in time. So you have to choose which session you want to attend and which other 4 you're willing to let go. But I think that's also prep for working in the corporate world, right? So absolutely, it was great. And then after ISB, there was a session, an engagement activity called Shadow and Alum, which Deloitte Consulting did, right? And until then, I did not know what consulting was, honestly. Ask someone from the medical background what consulting is, most likely they will not know, even today, right? So I just happened to go to Deloitte and I thought that the work that they were doing was very cool. I could relate to the people. And that's kind of how I made a decision to go work at Deloitte. I spent about 7 years over there. Fantastic time, spent time with clients in India as well as in the US. So 3 months I'd be in the US, come back to India, spend 3 months at a client here, go back, right? So it was fantastic way to begin my career. And then I decided that I want to switch out, go see the world from the other side. So I took up a role at NephroPlus, which is a startup. It's the largest dialysis service provider in India. And the 8th largest in the world. And I spent about 1.5 years there, got burnt out by the end of it. But it was a fantastic 1.5 years there because there was a series of transactions. First, there was a acquisition that I ran, and then set up a JV with an Indonesian hospital chain, a very large Indonesian hospital chain. And then there was a fundraise activity, right? So within 1.5 years, I was completely drained. Though the work wasn't exciting, I couldn't handle it anymore. Switched out to another company called Sai Life Sciences. Again, was heading a similar role as NephroPlus, where I was the head of strategy, and was running some digital transformation initiatives, started building a product, and then came to Providence, which is where I currently work as the head of strategy, and I'm driving some growth plans for us as we are trying to pivot from being a captive center to a revenue generation center.
Wow. Wow, what a transition. Lovely. Thank you. So beautifully captured, Dr. Veda. Thank you so much. And moving on to Gayatri.
Hi everyone. Wonderful experiences shared already by Meghna and Veda. So would love to build upon that. I think pretty much I do agree with both of them when it comes to making the choice here. I remember I was in Sweden at that time. And actually, I was working with Wipro, and as part of my role was very peculiar and strange. I think that is where the diversity component comes into picture. So uh, I would say my education was in architecture, but my profession was into sustainability. And I had very carefully chosen that niche for myself by building my career into green buildings and then getting into the chosen field of sustainability, because this is an area which is very, very close to my heart. And I wanted to really pursue that with, utmost seriousness. And one of the organizations that was doing it really well at that time, I'm talking about 2010 to 2014. That was the period I spent with Wipro, and I was their sustainability anchor for India operations. And as part of my sustainability interventions there, I remember we had gone to Sweden. They had some, very special program that selected 20 professionals from India that would be taken to Sweden to exchange the best practices on sustainability. So that was my very good exposure. And after I came back, my seniors, or I would say the vice president whom I was reporting into, he suggested that you do not really need an MBA anymore. However, my mentor, who was the chief learning officer at Wipro at that time, he suggested that no, I think you must do an MBA. So I had two mentors in Wipro. One was a lady, and she was not an MBA, and this person was an MBA from XLRI. However, I got, and this is a kind of trend. If you ask somebody who has done an MBA, they would always advise you to go for it. And those who have not, they would mostly advise you not to go for it. So I would reserve my opinion for now. I'll just tell you my story. So I was actually not very sure whether I should go for it or not, because it was November end and round two application deadline was also coming to a close. I think I was just about 10 days away from that.
Right.
But then it so happened that for some work related thing, I had to visit Hyderabad. And in Hyderabad, I happened to meet a friend of mine who was my classmate from IIT Roorkee. And he invited me over to ISB. And actually, that was the inflection point. So that really changed my whole decision. So then I was like, this is such a beautiful campus. And I was sitting in the atrium, just exchanging thoughts and ideas with him. I even spent some time there, and I was completely sold. I said, yeah, this is a beautiful place. Even if you do not learn anything, this kind of ambience is going to really help you grow the, inner talent in you, whatever you have. So then I said, okay, there are just 10 days. Let me give it a shot. I gave it a shot and got through. And then the interview, as Meghna was saying, was absolutely interesting. I was, I think, one of the last persons to be interviewed that day.
Oh,
And yeah, and
truly made an impact.
and the panel, actually, the moment I entered, since they were running really late, so they were very apologetic. The very first thing, they were like, we are very sorry, we had to keep you waiting and all that, which was just unexpected, because usually when you enter a room, when you are to be interviewed, you're expecting everybody else to be shooting questions at you and kind of putting you on spot. But that was not at all the case. I was treated with utmost respect, and the questions were also very intriguing. Like, they were literally helping me make a choice even at that moment. They asked me some very fundamental questions about how about, since you are from sustainability background and we do not have too many companies who come in for a placement here in sustainability, so how do you see yourself once you graduate? I said, that doesn't matter. I mean, I'm very clear. Either I will be, operating as a chief sustainability officer of a corporate, or I will be working in the business development role of a company that is promoting sustainability. And they said, what if none of the kinds come to campus? Then what will happen? I said, I will be an entrepreneur in that case. Probably there was, absolute honesty on both the sides. They were asking me questions, and they were very honest in admitting that there are not such companies who would come to the campus. And I was also absolutely honest that I will not leave the field of sustainability, because I'm so passionate about it that I was clear on what I wanted. So I think that was a very good fit. So, like in any sort of matchmaking, you have to see both the parties have to come in with their strengths and weaknesses together, and you get to understand each other. So I think that process at ISB is really very fulfilling and very well thought through. So that is how I made the choice. in that interview panel itself. And also they also made a choice of having me there. So yeah.
I think you mentioned a very important word there. The key is honesty. So absolutely. All right. So thank you for a lovely introduction. I think it's been truly a pleasure knowing all three of y'all. And without further ado, we'll head to the questions. But before that, all the lovely ladies out there, the format is going to be that all questions to the alums, we're going to sort of front load them. And if you have any questions with respect to ISB, PGP or admissions related, I will take them post the panel discussion. I don't want to hold up the alums. I don't want to eat up into their airtime. I will give you maximum airtime with the alums first. So any questions that you may have, please feel free to ask them. And yes, I have a very beautiful question that are men allowed in this session? Absolutely. Please, you're most welcome to this discussion. And we hope you find this session very insightful again. So moving on to our first question. And since all three of you all come from very diverse backgrounds, very, very important question that what do you see, what is your take on the impact of having women in the organization? How important it has become now for the organizations to have women representatives at each level, at various levels of leadership and management. So I think we'll start with Meghna. Meghna, over to you.
Sure. I really wish you hadn't asked me first because I'm extremely passionate about this. And
I think I did the right thing.
Here's the thing, the planet that we live on has roughly half women and half men, right? So my only question is, whenever I'm asked, oh, should there be women representation at all levels, etc., my answer to them is, I am asking, is it too much for me to ask my employer to make sure that my workplace represents the planet that I live in, which is in my workplace? Doesn't matter if you're entry level, doesn't matter if you're CXO level, make it 50% men, 50% women. That's it. I'm only asking for half of the pie. That's it. It's not a question of representation. It's a question of balancing.
Right.
We had an offsite. That's it. I mean, it's not optional anymore. It's not the icing on the cake. It is the basic batter in the cake. How can you not? Should we is not a question anymore. How can you not? To the person who asked, are men allowed in this? Did the invite ever say it was probably for prospective applicants to talk to ISB alumni? The gender thing doesn't play here, So that's it. That's what I think. And as far as I'll actually answer your question rather than go on with my extreme passion about it. Well,
I like the word there. It's balancing. Yeah. Sorry.
It's balancing. Yeah. So we had an offsite just now where there were around 2,500 odd people. The government sector team is really large, and right at the end of the session, we had a partner who had just become a woman partner. She was an associate partner and she'd been promoted as a partner. And the government practice has been around for 18 years. It took them 18 years to find one woman to make a partner. And we showed a single slide on the stage which said which was basically a pyramid with the bottom two bars showing 10th, 12th grade enrollment, which is around roughly the same 52% for men versus women. College level enrollment, which slightly reduces. And then the top three bars of the pyramid were entry level, in workplace, manager level, and top executive level, which is the level that this panel comprises of. The entry level is around 47-53. The manager level is 27 to 28%. The top level is 2.7%, which means that if you have like 100 CXOs, there will be 2.7 women. How is it not an imperative? It's not even something that we should now be thinking of, ye bhi karna chahiye.
Correct.
This is the thing that we need to do. So that's it. I really will stop because Veda and Gayatri are going
I think,
to
no, thank you for drawing some stats
throw me
there.
out of.
The alarming numbers, absolutely. Yeah, moving on to Veda.
Yeah, sure. See, I think there is a lot of research that proves something that's obvious, right? That having diversity in your workforce, right? Whether it's women, whether it's other kinds of diversity, but especially women, it directly adds to the bottom line.
Correct.
Right? There is enough and more research by very well-known companies like McKinsey, probably even EY. I think I've seen a report from EY as well. Right? So there is a direct bottom line impact. But even from a work environment perspective, I think of it as risk mitigation or risk management, right? Because you're getting in people from a completely different perspective, who bring in a completely different perspective and help you think through business issues from various angles, right? So fundamentally, I think it's very, very helpful. And what I'm going to say next, I think, is will be extremely controversial, and I'm going to have to caveat the hell out of it. But I think that women in general, at least in the workplace, in my experience, are much more collaborative.
Totally.
Right? Then I'm not saying men are not collaborative, but just relatively speaking, that's just been my observation. And so while there is healthy competition, I think collaboration is the only way an organization can progress and achieve results, right? So in my view, in a very tactical way, these are 2-3 ways in which it proves that it's very important to have women in your workforce. I'm lucky enough today to work in a company which has 38% gender diversity across levels, right? Whether it's the lowest level or even the leadership level, right? So all my peers put together, we're at 38%, which we're very proud of. And that only happens because our country manager, our leadership team is extremely passionate about this, and not just passionate, they're sponsoring this, right? So for every role, we ask ourselves, do we have enough women candidates in the pipeline, right? And of course, after that, the choice is made based on merit, but at least we should have enough people in the pipeline. And it takes concerted effort to do that. In my previous 2 roles, again, as part of the leadership team, right, I was the only woman in both of those. So it felt slightly lonely in those roles, I will admit, right? And it's refreshing to be part of a company where there are so many women in your leadership team. Oftentimes, I see in my lunch table, there's only women, and it's just once in a while, it's quite fantastic to see that.
Awesome. And moving on to Gayatri.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful perspectives already built on, and at the stats that Meghna was building on, that's really very alarming. And I mean, this is very true. Since we come from the sustainability segment, and sustainability is not any particular sector, it actually is the way every sector is supposed to be, acting in a way that the human existence on this planet continues. So it touches upon almost all the kinds of interventions. So I'm sure that many of you are aware of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that have been laid out by the United Nations. And as part of that, one of the goals is about gender equality, right? But when we talk about gender equality, generally I know that your question is actually about the corporate, organizational participation or the attendance of women in the leadership roles. However, I think the stats start staggering right in the level of, I would say, quality education. I come from IIT Roorkee, and I won't be ashamed to accept that in every IIT, at least in our times, IITs had to have very, very skewed ratio of girls versus boys. So for every close to say 800 boys, there will be hardly 20 to 30 girls, right? So that was the kind of ratio. And if I'm not wrong, that may be still the case. Maybe it has improved, but it would be a very, very nominal improvement if at all there is. And then there were things like the curfew. That at that time we had a curfew of 9 o'clock. After 9 p.m., you cannot step outside the girls' hostel. And in this day and age, do you even understand how would that mean? What would that mean in your overall growth? Like, you have competitions, you have things that you have to work together as a team, and that does not discriminate between a boy and a girl. But then these are the opportunities that are kind of stopping one gender from availing that entire level playing field, right? Which is otherwise not the case. So I'm stating these examples. However, I mean, not to put IIT Roorkee in a bad shape. In fact, the current director has made a very good, progress, and this is amazing that right now there is a hostel which has one wing for guys and one wing for girls. So in one hostel itself, you are having, and there is no such curfew of 9 p.m. anymore. So recently we had the good fortune to visit the campus and we saw the changes. Now bringing it back to the corporate world, I have throughout been a loner. In most of the meetings it would be like there are some 10 men sitting and I'll be the only one, or maybe there is another one if at all there is any, otherwise it will be just me. But over time we get used to this, but then sometimes we do ask this question, that why is that so? And even if I am there, what kind of leadership capacity am I building in for the new ones to come into this whole field? So I think it's not just limited to the current norms, but it is also about the flexibility of us modifying the way we look at hiring, the way we look at accepting women, the way we look at structuring the organizations. So all of this has to be somewhere relooked at in order to make it more conducive for women, because you cannot have same kind of benchmarks and measurement tools for men and women both, because I believe that both of them come with their own strengths. And while a man may be more comfortable staying up in the office till say 9 o'clock, but may not be as efficient as a woman would be, who would want to step out of the office by 6 p.m, right? So
Absolutely.
both of them, as Dr. Veda was also talking about the collaborative spirit that women bring in. This is absolutely, this is bang on. I would not be agreeing more than what you have already said. In fact, my team, I have seen that we have, at Buzz on Earth, we have been mostly all women. This is the first year that the ratio is pretty much 50-50. Otherwise, it has been always 90% women and 10% in minority, we had boys. But then that was always reflecting in the kind of work and the client relationships we handled. And women are generally very, positive in building relationships and maintaining relationships, which is fundamental to any kind of corporate behavior, whether it is with your clients or the partners or vendors or stakeholders. And for sustainability also, it is all about coexistence, and that too in harmony. So we have to recognize that attribute and, create such roles and positions for women to take part actively.
Absolutely. I think very well said. I think another word that comes to me are that I think we are the best multitaskers as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The way we are able to wear multiple hats, I think it's a big shout out to all the women leaders out there. So I think all three of you all have brought in very interesting perspectives and very relevant data points. And the numbers look alarming and abysmally low. So my next question
has something to say.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, Richa, I'm sorry, I'm talking out of turn, I know.
No problem, please.
Just that I realized that to the attendees, this might seem like 4 women talking about women versus men. This is not that. It simply makes business sense, like Dr. Veda said and Gayatri said. Quick example, Apple in their iPhones, when they first came out with the native health app, after a while they realized it didn't have the women's health period tracking feature in it, because the people who designed it, that team did not have a human being who used to go through periods.
Correct.
Right? Now this is Apple. You're going to buy an iPhone. Yeah. You don't mind what features you're going to buy an iPhone because you're going to buy an iPhone native app. You're going to get it. Now translate this to a product by another company, where the company wants their product to be used by more and more and more people across genders, across, like Dr. Veda said, all kinds of diversity, not just women, right? If you want that to happen, if you want it to make the business sense, have more diversity. Basically, the user set that you want, replicate that user set in your design teams, in your business teams, in your marketing teams, in your finance, in your HR, and in your leadership team. That's it. It makes business sense, like Dr. Veda and Gayatri said.
Absolutely.
Don't do it because you want to make us comfortable. No, we're fine.
Absolutely. I think diverse perspectives, very important point there. Diversity, right? Absolutely. So I think, which leads me to ask the next questions, considering the data points that we've just discussed, that the numbers are very alarming, abysmally low. I'm sure that in your journey, you would have faced a lot of challenges, right? At the education level, like Gayatri mentioned, and even when starting out our first job at mid-senior levels or at senior leadership levels, we face those challenges. So I would want to hear from you, how has your journey been? What are those challenges that you faced and how did you help overcome these challenges? And this time, if I might start with Dr. Veda.
Sure. So, I mean, I have to say that I've been very fortunate to not have faced too many challenges. And I think that's because of all the good work that previous generations of women have done, right? So my parents, our parents, basically, I think that's the generation of women that bore the brunt of, breaking some barriers, etc. And our way has been eased up because of that, right? But so I don't think whether in junior levels or even at senior positions, I've faced any kind of discrimination or challenges, right? But there are certain things, for example, women, I think, tend to not speak up as much, and I'm guilty of that, right? And that costs you things. It costs you promotions, it costs you networks, lots of things like that. So that partly is, I think, I will take responsibility for it, but that's also part of nature, and I see that in a lot of women, which others don't necessarily understand and therefore undermine your position, right? I've also seen so interruptions, right? Again, some people might disagree, but women get interrupted more often than men do, right? And so that's obviously not a great situation to be in. But again, that also costs you promotions, that also costs you other things, right? And so you're at a disadvantage over there. But all of this, I think, is things that you can control as an individual to a large extent. Once you coach yourself, right? What has been most annoying is the unwanted attention that you get, especially when you're much more junior. And it's very difficult to navigate situations like that, right? And so one quick example, right? This was a senior colleague of mine who said, okay, let's go grab a dinner or something somewhere, right? And that's part of usual, workplace culture, and you go do that on the sidelines of a party or whatever it is, right? And then gradually you realize that the intentions are slightly different. And unfortunately, it takes a long time for you to realize that the intentions are slightly different, right? And so when do you start drawing that line? So those are situations that have made me extremely uncomfortable throughout my career. Of late, of course, I've learned how to manage that well. But I think that, if you ask me, is the greatest challenge that I have faced.
And if I may add, sometimes drawing that line also costs promotions.
Absolutely. But I think it's worth it.
So it's worth it, totally. I think totally, absolutely, completely agree. How about you, Gayatri?
Yeah, I would actually start agreeing with the last point made by Veda. So, in fact, I was going to start with that for some reason, I know that there must be some biological reasons for that, but then still, I think as a civilized community of human beings, we should somehow learn to overcome these, situations. And it's not at all fair for women because, it's not your fault if you're drawing some attention, and everybody wants to be presentable. And if that is making the other gender, give you unwanted attention, and that is hurting your work space as well as your space to grow.
Wellness,
That's
absolutely.
very important in a corporate environment, especially. You are a junior employee. You are, you are here to grow. You are here to learn from the senior colleagues. And as Veda was saying, that these senior male colleagues happen to sometimes, take undue advantage of their seniority, and just in the name of helping you grow, they may want to, get some sort of, so which is absolutely unfair on the women colleagues. And this is something, I don't know why we do not talk about it much. I mean, it need not be exactly a Me Too movement. I'm not really bringing on a Me Too movement here, and not every situation can lead to a absolute it's not about creating a dramatic scene. It is about just making somebody uncomfortable about being yourself, right? So if I'm really hesitant because I should not smile too much, or I should not really, crack it. I mean, if you're cracking a joke, I should not be really responding to it, because I know that if I smile, then you will probably consider that to be some sort of
misinterpret it.
Exactly. So those are the things which I believe have to be somewhere, change. I don't know how do we change that. I have so far not been able to crack it. But then you can only manage your own self, and you can try and draw lines, okay, where you do not let the other person get into your space and so on. So, but as an entrepreneur, it becomes even more challenging, because as an entrepreneur, you're required to go all out. In fact, you are going to be proactive. As an employee, you have to just manage your little space that you have. But as an entrepreneur, the entire world is your oyster, and you are there to chase dreams. You are there to make things happen.
Totally.
There, the stakes are much higher, and the kind of losses are also much higher. And I mean, but as Veda said, it's worth it,
Totally.
Under no condition you should be compromising on your self-respect and your personal space. But then, yeah, this is an actual challenge that has been very, very present in almost every situation so far. Yeah.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. How about you, Meghna?
Yeah, so in terms of challenges, I think I'll have to concur with Veda that there've been a number of challenges on the way. I think I've been very fortunate overall. Haven't seen a lot of challenges. The unwanted attention thing I probably saw very, very less of, and I think I hardly got any, fortunately, but maybe that's because maybe I was just a nerd and constantly in my work, you never know. But what I did experience a lot of along the way, and now that I've reached the position where I am, I don't get that, is interruptions and mansplaining and very bad workplace practices.
Right.
Habits and behaviors that have gotten ingrained in people and become normalized. For example,
Part of the culture, organization.
part of the culture. ऐसा तो होता ही है, kind of thing.
Correct.
You're interviewing a person. This is a young woman who's probably gotten married, say, a year back, let's say.
Yeah.
So if the person, first of all, don't ask the persons during an interview, don't ask the person their marital status. It has got nothing to do with their quality of work. Let's say you ask them, you being friendly, maybe. Don't, first of all. Let's say they solicit the information. Once she's offered the information, the only thing that you can say when presented with the news of the fact that they got married a while back is congratulations, and that's it. That's it. What I've seen recruiters doing is that, oh, so then you must be about to have a baby in a while. Then how will you work?
So true.
Similarly, if a guy has just gotten married a year back or so, you won't ask them that. Why are you doing this?
Correct.
That's normalized behavior, and it is time for us to make that generational change. And I would strongly request our participants, whether men or women, to not do this when they, in their current job, in their future job, ISB, whatever, whether they choose that MBA school or not do this and not stand for this when it's being done.
Right.
And no, you're not going to lose out on your job offer just because you stand for it. There's a simple way of saying this. I don't think that's pertinent. Say it with a smile, girls. If you smile, charm is the best disarming thing. I don't think it's pertinent. But thank you so much for taking such an interest. I'm already looking forward to working with this firm. That's it. So that's one. And the other thing, the interruptions is something that we're all on a conference call or we're all in a meeting, and let's say I make a point, there will always be a person, a guy, it doesn't happen now so much, who will say, what she's trying to say is, don't tell the others what I'm trying to say. I am the same age as you. I'm also a manager. You're also a manager. I know what I'm trying to say. And all the other, you're either insulting me or you're insulting the intelligence of the rest of the group that they didn't understand what I'm trying to say. That's normalized behavior too. Don't do that. And also don't mansplain.
Right.
So it's up to us to really consciously make that generational change. And the last thing that I'll say is, let's really normalize using gender neutral language. Say they,
Right.
and when he does this, when the client, he does this, the client, he says that, either say he/she, or if it's the two months, just say they. It makes a huge difference. We get represented. When I'm making my financial quotes for clients, I've stopped writing man days. The manager who reports to me brought it up to me and said, these are the man days effort Meghna. I said, oh, so am I not going to be part of your team? He said,
Right.
yes, you are. So I said, then write person days, no? He said, oh yeah, that's it. Don't say manned, say staffed. That's it. You're already on the path to a better world that is more comfortable for everyone.
Correct. Lovely. Wow, I think amazing. Very, very, very beautifully put all of those points. And again, a larger message to all the women leaders out there and some of the men who've joined us today that I think it's all about equality and balancing and changing the culture now. So we should be the change that we're looking for. Right. So thank you so much again, Alans. Another very interesting question. We've talked about the challenges that we faced and how we've overcome that. So one of our our attendees wanted to ask that, do you have any regrets choosing the career you are in now? Or if given a choice, would you like to choose this career or do something else differently? And probably this time we'll start with Gayatri.
Well, not at all. I would say zero regrets of choosing the career that I am in, because as I said, and I narrated in my very first interview experience also, I had absolute clarity on what I wanted from the beginning, even before coming to ISB, even before, getting into, the job that I took with Wipro. So I had absolute clarity because I grew up in nature. And I think to all the participants, because I know many of you must be really very young and maybe still figuring out why are you doing this in this MBA. It's not just another, tag to be proud of that, okay, you are now say from ISB and MBA is accomplished. It's not yet another checkbox thing. It should really add to something that you have planned for yourself. And trust me, sooner or later, this MBA will also not matter to you anymore. What you choose as your discipline or the career choice that you feel that you're really committed to, you really love to, something that really makes you wake up with all your energy every morning, try and choose that. And whatever it takes, this is the time to make it happen. And ISB is the best place to help you get that transition, because you will see the kind of peer group which is as diverse as one can ever imagine. And the kind of students are so bright. You will always find the person, the 3 to 4 people sitting around you always smarter than yourself. So this is the kind of place you are in. So this is, just try to make best use of it to discover the real you. And that's very important. If this 1 year could help you discover your real passion and your real motivation to do what you want to do in life, you are sorted for life, and you will always thank ISB for this 1 year.
So beautifully put. Thank you so much, Gayatri. How about you, Dr. Veda? What's your take on this?
Well, I think the last 10 years of my life post ISB have turned out to be something that I had never imagined. I did not imagine having a life like that, right? In terms of the exposure, the travel, the kind of work that I've done. And what I enjoy the most about the work that I've done is the intellectual stimulation. Right? So every day it's something new, which I've absolutely enjoyed. So I wouldn't give that up. However, a part of me does feel like maybe I should have continued to practice, right? Because that was my first love, if you will. So I would love to be in a situation where I can practice and do my current job, which is not possible, but that would be my ideal state.
Sure. Over to you, Meghna.
Yeah, so I actually stumbled into consulting. I didn't, the entire year of ISB, I just kept on wondering, what is it that I'm going to do? What is it that I'm good at? And I stumbled into consulting. And I think at this point of time, 16 years fast forward, I don't think I would choose any other career. The kind of exposure that I've got, the kind of diverse experiences that I have been part of, I don't think I would have got. I shouldn't be saying that, I probably would have, but the kind of person that I am, the kind of things that I like doing, I realized came to fruition the most in consulting. Or there's always a new problem to solve. There's always a new set of people, clients to worry about. There's teams to manage. There's revenue to get, etc. So absolutely. But one thing I definitely want to reinforce what I think now I'm doing CP now. I want to.
That's
So,
what ISB does to
They don't
you.
yet know what TP is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where is the TA? Make sure that the TA is looking.
Well, the session is being recorded. The prof will look at it.
Yeah, good. Good. So definitely want to reinforce what Gayatri said. The kind of preparation that ISB gave to me to succeed in a consulting career was remarkable.
Yeah.
But I'll also make a converse point. The thing about B school, most B schools, is that depending on the kind of B school that you're in, if you're in Kellogg's, it'll be more financial. If you're in London Business School, it'll be something. In ISB, there's consulting, which is like a hot a career choice. But what that does is that a lot of it becomes like a haves and the have-nots kind of thing. Don't, please, if you get into ISB, if you choose ISB, if you get into it, don't let that affect you, please. It's okay if you don't want to be part of case study preps. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to join consulting. These two super accomplished ladies did not go for consulting. I mean, Dr. Veda did in the beginning of her career, but then she made her own journey. So it's perfectly fine. The FOMO is huge. What if I don't get into consult? And that has significant effect on people's mental and emotional health. So find the thing that you're passionate about, even if it's not something that the rest 250 are going for, it's fine. Don't let FOMO dictate your career choices.
Right. So speaking of ISB, there is a very interesting question in the chat window which has just come up that now that we are discussing of ISB, what were those various clubs and initiatives that you guys were part of at ISB, and how have those initiatives or how have those participation in those clubs or workshops or events or conferences helped you in your post ISB journey? We'll start with Dr. Veda.
Sure. So there was, of course, the consulting club, right? And thanks to that club, of course, we were all the consulting aspirants, I think, started preparations early, right? And I think that was the greatest contribution of that club, as far as I'm concerned. And also the shadow and alum program that I mentioned earlier, right? That probably just changed the direction of my career. I think I enjoyed working with a small study group or a consulting case prep group the most, right? And that's where I learned a lot of business concepts, if you will, just by peer exchange. A couple of other things that happened through that club was, of course, some resume review sessions, etc., right? Which built my, again, because I came from a very different background, I had no idea what the expectation was, right? So I think some of the coaching that I was given through a program, CV review program with alums as well as peers, I think that really built up my CV. And of course, ultimately it got selected. So obviously that turned out well. And there was also a mock interview series that they ran, invited some alums on campus, right? And some folks from consulting came, and I'm still in touch with a few of them, because they, again, like, they challenge you to think a little bit. They also encourage you to say, okay, listen, you're smart, but then you have to be doing A, B, C, D, E to qualifying for a consulting, because they'll tell you what people look for, etc. Right? So I think those are some of the things that were instrumental in me being selected into a consulting role.
Lovely. How about you, Gayatri?
So there are several clubs within ISB, and which clubs are you part of? That is not going to decide on what you take up later, but that definitely determines, as I told earlier, that helps you rediscover what you are really, passionate about and what you really care about the most. So as it goes, I was mostly passionate about sustainability, and there was no sustainability club at my time, though I would have wanted it to be there. But then now I'm assuming that the institute is doing that, and I'm also part, as an alum, I'm also trying to help with that. But idea is this, that you have to create something which is not there, and ISB will give you that kind of ground to develop something which is not existing. And otherwise, there is a lot that is existing. Like we have something called Women in Business Club. Then we have the Social Impact Club. So these are some of the areas which might be of interest. And irrespective of whether you want to make a lot of money versus not a lot of money, I think impact is something which you should always consider. And in fact, 2 days back, I was having a conversation with a person who very blatantly told me that no, I want to make a lot of money. That is my only goal. So I do appreciate that thinking, which is okay. But then ultimately, you have to understand you are a human being. And as per the Maslow's pyramid, you should always know that your need, the hierarchy of needs, will always keep growing. And after that need for money is accomplished, you will be really, seeking a higher level of accomplishment, and that will come from the kind of impact you have created in your lifetime. And trust me, we all are on this planet for a very short while, and we have to make the best. And this is the age in which we can do the most. And I think at ISB, you can get started on that journey. And there are a lot of talents out there who have kind of devoted their life for causes that they truly care about. I think this is the time you start spending some time with them and learning how you can discover for your own journey what kind of causes will help you stay on track, and what will give you the real motivation beyond money. So yeah, with that, I think the clubs will not matter beyond a point, but then you can be part of as many clubs that you feel concerned about. Yeah.
True, very true, very true. How about you, Meghna? What's your take here?
Was it part of any club?
Best answer.
What clubs were there in 2006?
Oh, please. Itna bhi purana nahi tha. Now you're just making me sound like the old ages. Yeah,
Oh.
okay, fine. It was pre-Facebook.
Pre-Facebook, the Orkut era.
The Orkut. Actually, it was pre-Orkut.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, Orkut was 2008, I think.
2006. Facebook was 2007. Orkut was 2006. But yeah, I joined a lot of clubs, and then I just stopped going to them after a while. But what I really enjoyed was the pre-placement talks that happened, the PPTs as they were called. That is what really told me about when the company people themselves come and they talk to you about what the firm does, etc., and then asking them questions. That's really something that right at the end kind of told me that, okay, this is what I want to do. Because till then, I think I was just meandering. Karna kya hai? I had no idea. Sorry, I know, not a good answer, but yeah.
There's just one more thing that I wanted to add, right? Of course, consulting club was the majority of my time was spent with that, right? But there were other clubs like a healthcare club. There are some industry-focused clubs as well, right? Which are interesting. And at that time, just given so many activities happening in parallel, you have to make some choices, right? And you're part of some activities, some clubs,
Right.
and you can't necessarily attend even if you enroll. For example, Net Impact was a club that I was very passionate about, but somehow never found time for it. So maybe in retrospect, I wasn't as passionate about it or serious about it, right? But it was just time crunch, right? You can't do 5 things at the same time. But what I've realized now, being on the other side, being a part of company that goes to ISB to recruit, etc., is that companies are also looking for talent, right? And talent with specific capabilities. Now, I think the demand for specialization is increasing. And so if you're part of a club, then it tells companies where to go focus, right? And you can make contact with companies much more easily than you would have otherwise, because you're part of a large ocean, right? So that's just another way to look at it. And over a period of time, I think over the last few years, various healthcare club or consulting club or other folks, leaders have reached out to me saying, can you come for an engagement? How should we go about this problem? What else would be useful for a club to do? Things like that. That's when I understood that there was so much potential. If I had been part of these clubs and actively participated in it, it could have taken, a completely different shape. So that's been my learning, and I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely, very beautifully added that, Dr. Veda. And there is this tail question that I've also sort of received from the participant, that, and this is especially for Dr. Veda and Meghna, that what are those exact skill sets that the recruiters are looking for in consulting roles? So if you want to take it over, Meghna, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So in consulting, what I would say, what you're finally looking for is clarity of thought, ability to think on your feet, uh, people skills, very strong people skills, the ability to deal with all kinds of people, from co-workers to your partners, to your clients, most importantly clients, because clients come in all shapes and sizes, and they will throw all kinds of problems at you, right? And they will expect you to kind of come up with an answer right then and there. And the fourth thing that I would say is a very strong ability to structure your structure a problem. And yeah, there's a fifth one, very strong communication skills. And I really feel that these are the 5 things that ISB really prepped me for. Problem structuring skills is something that I don't think I would have had gotten a better education than ISB in. Ability to manage different kinds of people. Look at ISB, we are so diverse. We had like a professional scuba diver, we had a person who had played chess with Anand Vishwanathan, we had a person who had served in the Indian Air Force, we had an entrepreneur, we had 5 doctors, and all kinds of age ranges. It was amazing. That experience itself will help you a lot. So be part of consulting clubs, don't be part of consulting clubs, mingle, don't mingle. Make sure that you network. And networking is a big thing in B schools. But networking is not about going and meeting alumni. When you're sharing your room with 3 other people, your quad, that's your network. 16 years down the line, all of those people that I shared rooms with, that I shared lunches with, that were my group mates, my study partners, etc., they are senior vice presidents, partners, and CEOs. OYO CEO is my batchmate. 5 unicorns CEO are from my batch, etc. That's your network. That's your real network. It's fine if you don't give your business cards to alumni, if you don't attend high teas, etc. But yeah, coming back to your question, 5 skills: strong articulation, communication skills, problem structuring ability, people management skills, and I forgot the other 2. So yeah.
Networking.
Yeah.
So I think all of those, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And just if I could push that a little bit, right? There's one more aspect, which is the ability to tell a story well, which is a combination of structured thinking and strong
communications,
right? I definitely underestimated this when I walked into consulting, right? I'm like, listen, I went to the best medical school in India. I came through ISB. Of course, I know how to do consulting. I'm just very smart, right? There was a lot of arrogance at that time, of course. And then only to realize that you can be analytically strong, but unless you communicate properly and in a structured manner, nobody's going to listen to you or understand what you're saying, especially if you're super smart, right? And so it takes a while to understand that. And so I would say that maybe analytics, or the ability to think analytically, problem solving, is probably 25-30% of the expectation. But a good 35-40% is the ability to tell stories effectively, which is a combination of communication and structure.
Thinking. Fantastically. I think you beautifully summarized it, Dr. Ved. I think there is no other better way of putting it. Storytelling is the next buzzword these days. So thank you so much. And with that, we move on to our next question, and a very important, pertinent question, especially we all women face some or the other time in our career. And this one is, what will be your overarching message to all the women leaders who've joined us today, who've had to take a career break and then plan to pave their way back in the corporate? Whether be it with respect to signing up for an MBA or cracking an interview. So what would be your advice to all the other women leaders out there? And we'll start with Gayatri this time.
A very good question, by the way. And women do, anticipate these interruptions. I think right from the early ages, and they know that they will have to take a break because of the marriage or the childbirth or whatever reasons. And sometimes I think even men should consider taking a break, because taking a break gives you a very good, what you say, a void that is required for you to think clearly on what you really want. Because my personal understanding, and I'm not just basing it on my life or my career choices, we have been having these discussions over and over with our batchmates, colleagues, even ISB friends, that what kind of career choices we have made and are we really happy with it or not. So I know some of my friends who were my batchmates in ISB, they had taken close to 6 months of break before joining the MBA program.
Right.
Because those 6 months, those were not just to prepare for it was more to mentally prepare and understand what exactly is required. So first of all, women should get rid of the guilt that comes along with the break. That's point number one. Second is that see the positive side of the break. You have to first of all understand that this break is the time for you to think clearly on what you want to build yourself as the next big thing. And the world is changing so rapidly. We have in our own lifetimes seen the IT boom, the dot-com boom, and now there is the startup buzz which is all over. And within startups also, you must be seeing that currently the climate change and sustainability is catching up big time. So the trends keep changing. And what's the most beautiful thing about break is that it actually helps you disconnect from what you associated yourself with in your past avatar, right? So this is the time for you to hone up your skills into getting into something that you want to build your career into. So these are some of the areas where you can actually start, anticipating a positive turn after the break, and be very confident after the break. When you are meeting an interviewer or meeting an employer, be very confident about the break that you have taken. It should be like you have consciously taken the break to do this, to do that, to achieve this, to achieve that, and there should be no compromise at all. It should not, under no circumstances you should be settling for a lower pay. You should be settling for a substandard designation or role just because you were on a break, right? Because that does not make you any less competent professional or human being. So these are some of the points that I would like to share from my end. Yeah.
Bang on. I think I just started clapping in between. I think it just touched my soul while you were saying all of this. How about you, Meghna?
Yeah, so I took a break pre-ISB. It was almost a year's break, and I've hired more than me taking, so more than my own experience. I've hired a lot of women who've taken breaks. One of the things that definitely, I think it's the guilt that, like Gayatri said, but also almost like oh, I don't deserve that because, I'm sorry. There's almost an apologetic tone. Don't be apologetic. I just keep telling all the people that I interview, you are an adult professional. You took a life decision.
Absolutely.
And now you use that decision. You live with the consequences, but then you use that decision to your advantage. And like Gayatri said, build your profile, and that's where what Dr. Veda said earlier, your storytelling skills come to fore.
Right.
Build your story around it in such a way that I took a break, and during that break, these are the skills that I built.
Correct.
While I was good at that and doing this, I know that the firm that I am interviewing with right now, you need these things, and that is what I bring to the table. So I will be a great value addition to you. That's it. Don't build up the break as a big thing in your head, and don't be apologetic about it. You took a break, That's it. Yeah.
So true. Own it. And just
own it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't shy away from it. Brilliantly put, Meghna. Over to you, Dr. Veda.
Yeah. So I think, see, when companies are interviewing people, I think of late, a lot of companies don't ask the question, why is there a break, right? If you have the right skill sets, the right kind of experience, the more matured companies will not ask you that question. But if some do, and I think there is validity in asking that question also, because they're afraid that maybe you have a tendency to jump too often, or there is some kind of instability, which obviously they don't want to take into their organization, right? So for that reason, I think if they ask the question, it is justified. But like the other two panelists said, right, there is no reason to be apologetic about it. I've taken fairly long breaks in my career so far, right? And everything was self-imposed, right? It's not because I had to take leave for family reasons or take a break for family reasons or anything, or because I was getting married or whatever, right? I was burnt out. I said, I'm going to take leave, right? And an extended period of time. The biggest question at that time was, okay, you don't know where you're going next. How can you take time off, right? How can you just be like, assume that something will fall into your lap eventually? How can you not line up your next opportunity before you decide to take time off? But I said that's what I thought I needed at that time. And so you have to trust your own judgment, and also obviously have the confidence that you will find something subsequently, right? So I think just trusting yourself there, despite what anybody else says, is important, and absolutely no need to be defensive, right? Employers, the future employers, have asked me, okay, what did you do? So I'm sure we will do something productive with the time off that we have, right? So you can always talk about it, but irrespective of what it is, even if you did not learn a new skill, like during COVID, everybody was saying, okay, I learned how to cook this, or I learned this musical instrument. I did not do any of those things. There were things going on at home. I was busy with that, right? And I'm not apologetic about it. So I think it's the same thing that holds true for any kinds of long breaks that you take.
Absolutely, so true. And there's this very nice innocent question in the chat window, and this one's from Sadhna. And Sadhna, thank you for posting that question. And the question is that she has a toddler, and she wanted to understand that how is the experience of managing kids and classes? How rigorous is it going to be for mothers? So I think I'll just open up the floor if anybody wants to take dig at that. Gayatri, yeah, Meghna, please, sure.
Yeah, so the support that you get at ISB, I'm so glad you asked this, Sadhna. The support that you get at ISB for mothers of infants to all kinds of, even teenage sons and daughters, and if you're living together as a couple, is phenomenal. Just to give you an example, I am an ISB alumni. A cousin is from ISB class of 12. Another cousin is now getting into ISB. Another cousin is Johns Hopkins.
Wow.
Another one is HEC Paris. Another one has just graduated from INSEAD. And I can tell you that that's Europe, US, and India, and also NUS. The kind of support that ISB provides to families and mothers is incredible.
Right.
Forget the fact that there's childcare available and creches available. There's everyone from the alumni to the placement coordinators, to the committees, to the admissions team, to the actual management of the school will go out of their way to kind of make it very, very comfortable for you. I had dozens of married, unmarried people who had children, and yeah, that's another thing. There's no judgment. You want to live with your better half, you want to live without them, you want to have kids of all kinds of ages, do that. There's no judgment. There's only and only support, and all kinds of support. Sometimes support is not just ye facility de diya. Sometimes support is just people going out of their way to make it easier for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So true. So beautifully put. Thank you, Meghna. How about you, Dr. Veda, Gayatri? You want to share experiences from your cohort, some friend you've seen closely in your cohort?
I don't qualify because I don't have children.
Somebody from your cohort?
Nor do I.
Yeah. So in my cohort, I mean, there were a lot of people who actually stayed on campus with their kids and families. And as
I think that's a very important point. Yes.
And as Meghna was saying, that staying with the family as per ISB, it is going to be very supportive. In fact, your entire peer group becomes your family's peer group as well.
Yeah.
And they do get to participate in the events, and they are pretty much part of the brainstorming sessions and discussions as well. And sometimes your family can bring in a very, very fresh perspective to a case study assignment that you're working on, right? So there is no such discrimination at all, I would say. The only problem one might probably anticipate could be your own distraction. In the first 3 months, I think ISB is extremely strenuous. So these 3 months do demand a lot of time of yours and a lot of attention. And I think doing justice with your family in those 3 months will be absolutely next to impossible. So that is something for you to take a call about. But then as per the ambience and the culture, I think it's very supportive.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sure that, all of us who joined us in this panel discussion today will be able to relate and will find a lot of comfort knowing that they can come and stay on the campus with their family, and that,
Yeah.
it's not going to be so difficult managing.
In fact, for your family, this will be the best time, actually.
Oh, yeah.
This will be the best time for your family because they will be
Yeah.
able to enjoy the resources and the campus
Yeah, much more than
yourself.
yeah.
Much more than you. I like the
Yeah,
way you think, much more than you.
yeah. But come, Sadhana, come. We'll make it goddamn difficult for you, but you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much for all. I think I'm sure not just Sadhana, but all the mothers out there. This is a larger message for you. Come join us. This community is there to support you, right? And again, I think one very interesting question, and this one's from Ritika, that during your time at ISB, did you ever feel that this 1 year is too short to develop your skills for the field you're interested in, given that, 1 year is going to be rigorous, the studies, and then your placements and in exchange programs. So did you feel that this 1 year is too short? And we'll start with Dr. Veda.
So, I mean, if you're asking me whether I would have liked another 6 months of stay at ISB, yeah, absolutely. Right? No question about that. But again, I mean, it's that it is packed, right?
Right.
But then it also helps you get back to the workforce much faster. And I think it's a very efficient way of getting an MBA, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't say, I mean, maybe 10% of me thinks that another 6 months on campus would have been nice just for me to enjoy. Like, I think whatever I needed to learn, I would have learned in a year. But then to just spend time with friends and enjoy the environment, etc., another 6 months wouldn't be bad at all.
Right. Yeah, totally true. So true. How about you, Gayatri?
Yeah, I think for me, it was not even 1 year. It was only 9 months because I had gone to Spain for my exchange program. So last
Right.
3 months were spent in Spain. And of course, that was, I mean, hardly any studies and more of travel, as one would anticipate. So we had done the entire, south of Spain travel, and we had 4 days of classes and 3 days of weekend. So, but then if you ask me, those 9 months, were they enough? No, not at all. It always felt like I wish I had another 9 months here. I mean, but then as Dr. Veda is saying, as for the return on investment and from the pragmatic point of view, from the kind of time you have spent, from the kind of learnings you have had, if you evaluate it from that perspective, yes, this is the best and the most efficient MBA program that you can aspire for. And in this 1 month, in fact, these 9 months that we got to spend there, that was good
Right.
enough for you to train. And it's not just training, because training you can anytime get. Even without going to ISB, you can buy those books and get yourself trained. If it is about just gaining the knowledge, it is about gaining that confidence of, come what may, you will be able to handle the situation. And that comes in those 9 months. I think the way it is structured, I think it is by design that the first 3 months are extremely strenuous. And after you survive those 3 months, then everything looks like a cakewalk. And then anything that you face in your life, you will be like, yeah, if we could survive those 3 months, we can do this also. So nothing seems tough after that. And you are, kind of toughened up for all sorts of problems.
So true. Moving on to Meghna.
Yeah, I think the two super accomplished ladies have said everything that I could say, really. But to answer that, because I think they focus more on the enjoying part of it, absolutely, I agree. If I could spend more time in ISB, I would, but just to enjoy. Skills, the course is, the duration is tight, it's efficient, it's effective, it is just right. Don't worry about skills. You'll get the skills outside also.
Yeah.
Worry about the experience. Meet people, fail at courses, pass at courses, just live through those 11 and a half months, and you will come out stronger on the other side. That's all you need to worry about.
So true. So true. And looking at the time, I think I'm just going to take the last two questions. So my next question is that, what is that one lesson, one leadership lesson, or one thing that has stayed with you that you learned at ISB? Dr. Veda?
Sure. So there was this class on organizational behavior. I forget the name of the professor. I'm very bad with names. But he basically said something very simple, which is for some reason stayed with me all this while, right? So he said that in a tumultuous, he was talking about how would you structure your organization in various environments, right? So he said that if it's a very stable environment, then you have to be organized by function, right? So you go deep and you develop some deep specializations. But then if you're in a very volatile environment, or if you're starting a new business, etc., then you have to have all the decision makers where the business is, right? So that's and that's more of a business unit kind of an orientation versus a functional orientation. So most organizations nowadays have a matrix structure, right? So there's a functional reporting, and then there is a direct admin reporting or business reporting. But his point was that depending on this environment that you're in and the stage of business that you're in, the functional component is stronger when you're, or should be stronger when you're in a stable environment, and the BU, the power of the BU should be greater when you're in a volatile environment. So yeah, I've just been able to apply it in various scenarios, right? And that's why I think it's very powerful.
True. I'm sure this is going to be my takeaway too from the session. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Veda. How about you, Meghna?
Yeah, so I think two lessons. One is about people. Observe more people, interact with more people, and the more you do that, the more your mental horizons will expand, the more your past inhibitions, biases, notions will fall apart, and the more kind of a holistic professional will you become, number one. And connected to that, be adaptable, be flexible. It's okay if you came from a manufacturing background and you have all these biases and notions, etc. It's okay if you came from a finance background and are going to tech, or the other way around, etc. Just be open to all kinds of experiences and people, and that's it. If you're able to get that flexibility and adaptability, you will have a smooth sailing and a meteoric rise in the career that you choose.
Absolutely. Very, very true. And finally, moving on to Gayatri.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about several things, but two things come to my mind that are the most important learnings. I think I've learned to embrace uncertainty and diversity. These are the two things which ISB teaches you through various ways, uh, by getting into situations where you do not know the outcomes. Even, I mean, something as simple as choosing a course, actually, or, getting to choose a club for that matter. So there has to be even the career choices that you make, the kind of companies that come in from day zero, you start getting flooded with the offers and the options, and you have to make a conscious choice. It is not that you're not going to get a job. What you have to decide is that if you have 1,000 things in front of you, what will you choose? And if you make that choice, what will be the future after that? Are you prepared for that uncertainty? Yes or no? So that's one big takeaway. And second is embracing diversity, because as I keep saying, ISB exposed me to various kinds of people. Like we have somebody from journalism, somebody from defense, somebody from a sports background, and with different skill sets and different personalities also. One person could be an absolute introvert but be absolutely amazing in statistics and BMOP. The other person could be an absolute extrovert and be absolutely amazing in, say, marketing or entrepreneurship. So you get to experience these people so closely, and you get to interact with them, and the kind of learning that happens through these networking sessions or the brainstorming sessions, or just hanging out and talking to each other, learning from each other's life experiences, that is, there's no comparison to that. It is incomparable. So these are the things which are my key takeaways from ISB, I would say.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, and I see a lot of overwhelming responses in the chat window also. They found this session really, really insightful. And one final question, what will be your overarching message to all the leaders, be it women or men who have joined us today? What is that one thing that they have to keep in mind, not just with respect to joining ISB and gaining knowledge, but overall with respect to facing challenges in life and how to overcome that? What will be that one message based on your experience that you want to leave them with tonight? And we'll start with Meghna.
Yeah, so I think when I had joined ISB, the very first week was orientation week. And that was, I joined ISB, and that was the first time I was setting foot in ISB. So everything was overwhelming. And the departing class during orientation week used to, in Khemka auditorium, used to put up a lot of presentations, etc. And one of the clubs, I think it was the marketing club, I'm not sure, like long time back, they played this video called Sunscreen by Baz Luhrmann. Everybody should see it. Everybody who aspires for an MBA and then a future course in business should say. And it just said, one of the lines of that has stuck with me throughout. Whatever you do in life, your chances are always half. It's always a throw of the coin. It's not even a throw of the dice, it's a throw of the coin. You always have 50% chance. Don't take yourself so seriously. You don't get into consulting, go for something else. Your entrepreneurial venture doesn't go through, do something else. Don't take your MBA and the future journey through business, uh, a professional environment too seriously. I know that sounds like frivolous advice, but it'll save you a lifetime of stress and anxiety, and
Absolutely.
and you'll end up making decisions that are a lot more rooted in the information that you have, rather than, oh, I need to achieve this, what if I don't achieve this? So
Don't stress. Right. So true. How about you, Dr. Veda?
Yeah, so I think this is a variant of what Meghna just said, but I'd say that don't follow the herd blindly, right? Just because everybody else thinks this is the right thing to do, don't do it blindly. If you're genuinely interested in, do it. Otherwise, in 5 years, 10 years, you lose steam and then wonder what you've done with your life. So just take a little bit of time to think about what is it that you really want to do, and pursue it wholeheartedly, right? Of course, and I've learned this through experience, right? So other people might be progressing a little bit faster than you, right? So I mean, it's each individual, each individual's path is his or her own, right? So as much as possible, this is easier said than done, I will agree, but as much as possible, don't compare yourself with somebody else, but have a plan, or at least have a direction, and then just move towards it. Things fall into place, right? We're in a world where there is a huge demand for good talent. So I wouldn't, and most of the jobs that you would want to do probably don't even exist today. So don't box yourself into something that you don't necessarily want to do right now. And just stay true to yourself as to what you feel like makes more sense, and continue to do that.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Veda. And we'll finally move to Gayatri.
I would say that do identify that one problem that you care about, or one trait that you care about. So just try and focus your wants or likes or aspirations as much as you can. That focus is what is going to help you go places in your life, and ISB kind of gives you that 1 year to get your singular focus achieved. If you can get your singular focus in this 1 year, that is really going to do wonders. And as Dr. Veda and Meghna, both of them were saying, that your herd mentality has to be really dropped, because probably you're even aspiring for an MBA because all your friends or your peer group or your family is pressurizing you to go for an MBA. But treat this as an opportunity to get disassociated with that herd mentality and find your specific niche and find your own journey, because your story is going to be the most unique story. Your story is like none other story, right? So take this as an opportunity to write that, the most beautiful one.
Right. And if you can't decide by the end of ISB what your single important passion is,
That's right.
and I am
That's right.
speaking on behalf of you, Meghna, you might differ from me, join consulting.
I know, exactly. We'll hire. Consulting, we don't have any dharmi, man.
Give you a little more time to think about what you really want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are very philanthropic in that way. We get people to kind of tell them that the consulting is not for me. Absolutely. Oh, I loved that. Can I please,
Sure.
Richa, end with a solid sales pitch for ISB?
Please go for it.
No other institute on this entire earth is going to do this, let you do this. When you are an ISB, you own ISB. The entire, whatever, hundreds of acres of campus and Sarovar, man, there will always be a Sarovar staff wandering around, even if it's 4:30 in the night, will treat you like royalty. You will be pampered. Work will fall on you like a ton of bricks, but you will be pampered. The rooms, the facilities, the campus, the LRC, you are it'll be like living in a 5-star hotel with people waiting on you 24/7. But that's not just it. If the class of 2007 says, you know what, I see this sloping garden, I'm going to turn it into an amphitheater. The ISB management says, okay, go ahead. The class of 2012 says, I see this empty patch, I'm going to turn it into a discotheque. The campus says, the campus doesn't put any morality or judgment on it. As long as you don't bring reptiles and weapons in the campus.
Oh, we have snakes though.
Yeah, see, you had to do this, right? So the campus is not going to
peacocks.
Yeah, peacocks and wild boars. This time in solstice, I saw the wild boars. I stayed away. Yeah, but yeah, I think it was part of one of them worked in the admissions committee, but yeah. But yeah, the college will not place any judgment this thing on you. Stay late, go outside. The gates are not going to shut at like 10 p.m., etc. There's no girls' hostel. There's no boys' hostel. The college knows that you're all adult professionals who've led fulfilling lives and who've made a conscious decision to be there. And you're there for a certain period and they'll take care of you. And that's it. That's what you need, right? You don't want to be treated like children.
Absolutely. I think what a beautiful way of summarizing this entire thing. This is the place to be for all the women leaders out there, and for anybody who's attending. Anybody who's attending this session today. So I think with that, I think we will draw close to the panel discussion with the alums. For those who have questions with respect to PGP, ISB, please hang on. I'll take all of those questions, all the admissions related questions. But first, let me please thank Meghna, Dr. Veda, Gayatri. I think it has been a total pleasure hosting you all tonight. It was an extremely insightful and very, very overwhelming session. I think you've been very, very supportive. Your pearls of wisdom, your experience has encouraged all of those who've attended today's session. So big thank you on behalf of everybody who's joined. They've left good, overwhelming messages for you all. So thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today. Also, for anybody and everybody who joined us tonight, thank you for hearing us, and thank you for joining us again and making this session very, very a huge success. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, alums. Thank you once again. And we look forward to hosting you again in our future events. Thank you so much.
Great to be part of this. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
The very best.
Bye.
All the participants.
All the very best. Yes.
All the very best. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Richa.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you.
Thank you, Richa.
Thank you. Good night, alums.
Thank you, Karthik. Bye.
Bye.
Karthik, you can stop the recording of the session. We will now move on to the Q&A, which is more like an informal thing. So, folks, if you have any questions for me, please show of hand and we can unmute you.